Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. So for those of you that have been with this channel for a long time, you might remember this series, which is where we look at one of the Yu-Gi-Oh shows and we go over the 15 strongest monsters that have never been printed in the OCG or TCG. Now if you're watching this years down the road, maybe some of these cards have been printed by then, but at the time of recording, these are the 15 strongest monsters. We are going to be looking at Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds that have never been printed in the actual card game. Now, by strongest monsters, I'm actually going to be ranking them by highest attack, which I know the term strongest is a little misleading because a monster could be very, very strong even though they have minimal attack. Like Ash Blossom is a very strong monster card, but it's got 0 attack stats. So I know the term strong is a little loose here, but we are ranking these 15 monsters from the perspective of most attack points. I have done this for every other Yu-Gi-Oh show, so this is going to be finishing off this series. And without further ado, let's get into it. Here are the 15 strongest Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds anime exclusive monsters. I hope you guys enjoy. We have 4 monsters tied for 12th with 1,800 attack points, the first being Hail the Iron Hammer, which is a fairy effect monster. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, select one monster on the field and destroy it. This monster was used by Bolton in episode 94, and it was actually the featured card for that episode. Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds did a featured card at the end of every episode where they looked at a new ace or a really cool monster, and usually Leo and Luna, the twins, would do that breakdown. This is part of the White Warrior archetype, which as of right now is one of the few 5Ds anime exclusive archetypes left. Another monster tied for 12th is Smile Angel, which this is really interesting because the effect of this monster is completely unknown. It is one of the very few monsters in the anime whose effects were never activated or mentioned at all. We never get a clear enough shot in the episode to see what this card actually does. We do know that it's an effect monster, and it was actually used by Jack Atlas in episode 69 when he dueled Don Piero. He attacked Don Piero directly with this card to win the duel. Another monster tied for 12th is Hexa Knight with 1,800 attack points. If your opponent controls no monsters, you can normal summon this card without tributing. So, kind of a really silly effect there. It's a conditional normal summon, but to only have 1,800 attack points, it's not really a good monster by any means. This was a monster that was used by Clark in his concentration duel against Yusei in episode 116. I know that duel was kind of strange. I don't even really remember that duel all that much. Kind of a forgettable effect. If it had a little bit higher of an attack stat, maybe it would be a good starter monster, but again, to only have 1,800 attack, maybe you can use it for some extra deck fodder. But there are just better level 6 monsters, in my opinion, that can be used in replacement of this that have that same effect or even a better effect, like the Fiend Mega Cyber is one that comes to mind. So, yeah, Hexa Knight tied for 12th. Another monster tied for 12th is Granel Attack 3, which of course is part of that Mech Lord series that we see used by Aporia, or the 3 characters that make up Aporia. I'm not going to read the entirety of this monster effect because it is a very, very long effect. But a couple of fun facts about this one is that this card does have the highest original attack of all the Granel monsters, and it was summoned by Jacob, the older variant of Aporia, or the older makeup of Aporia, against Yusei in episode 134, right before Aporia basically is formed and reaches his final form. Coming in 11th is Wisel Attack 5 with 2,000 attack points. So very similar to Granel Attack 3, Wisel Attack 5 has an insanely long effect that I'm not going to bore you guys with. But a fun fact about this one is this was the only Mech Lord Emperor part that was never summoned. This card was actually discarded, and so this is the only one that was never actually summoned and used in the duel in terms of being on the field. This was discarded by Aporia in episode 135, the episode after Granel Attack 3 was utilized. One of the monsters tied for 9th is Masked Knight level 5 with 2,300 attack points. So just as a little spoiler, we do have the level 7 version of Masked Knight that is going to be appearing later on in this video. This was an archetype and a level monster that was used by Ransborg in his duel against Aki in episode 16, and it's very similar to all of your level monsters. During your standby phase, you can send this face-up card to the graveyard to special summon Masked Knight level 7, and I believe this card is special summoned off of Masked Knight level 3. Once per turn, you can inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent. If you activate this effect, the card cannot attack this turn. So it's cool burn damage. It's trying to get into Masked Knight level 7, but again, we have more on Masked Knights later on in this video. Another monster tied for 9th is Assault Wheel with 2,300 attack points. During battle between this attacking card and a defense position monster whose defense is less than this card's attack, inflict the difference as battle damage to your opponent. If this card attacks, at the end of the battle phase, its attack becomes 0 until your next standby phase. So that effect might seem a little crazy, but it is important to note that Assault Wheel is a level 4 monster, and whenever you have a level 4 monster with a crazy high attack stat like 2,300, you are going to usually have a negative downside effect with it. So it's cool because you can summon it, you can do piercing to catch your opponent off guard, but then you are completely wide open because this monster loses all of its attack until your next standby phase. This monster was used by Sid in his duel against Jack Atlas in episode 76. Coming in 8th is Big Cannon Ogre with 2,400 attack points. This is part of the archetype that I really do hope gets printed in 5Ds, and that is Lawton's archetype. This was used by Lawton in his duel against Yusei in episode 90. Lawton obviously being the main antagonist of the Crashtown arc. His Ogre monsters have not been printed as of now. They are probably on the top of my personal list of an archetype that I would love to see printed one day. So maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but his Big Cannon Ogre does come in 8th place on this list. A monster tied for 6th is Combat Wheel with 2,500 attack points. So this is, I believe, our first extra deck monster on the list. It is a synchro monster, and it is used by Sid versus Jack in episode 76. Obviously, it's part of that Assault archetype. We just talked about Assault Wheel not too long ago. During your opponent's battle phase, you can activate this card's effect by discarding one card. Until the end phase, this card gains attack equal to half the total attack of all other face-up monsters you control. If you activate this effect, destroy all monsters you control when this card is destroyed. Your opponent cannot select other monsters you control as an attack target. So it's an interesting concept. If you have an insane field, an insane board with a bunch of 2,000, 3,000 attack point monsters, Combat Wheel can gain a disgusting amount of attack, and your opponent needs to attack that monster. It cannot attack any other monsters on the field, but if your opponent outs Combat Wheel, maybe through a spell or a trap or whatever means, then you lose your entire board, or at least all the monsters on your board. So it's a very feast or famine effect. And again, the combat archetype is one of those 5Ds anime exclusive archetypes. But what's interesting is this card was shown in Arc 5 episode 58 when the turbo dueling tutorial was being explained. So it's the only card on this list that actually did show up in multiple Yu-Gi-Oh anime. Another monster tied for 6th is Battle Eater with 2,500 attack points. So Battle Eater was not actually summoned in a duel. Kaz sent this card to the grave to stop Primo's Diablo army attack in episode 106. Its effect reads, when an opponent's monster with less attack than this card declares a direct attack, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to negate the attack and end the battle phase, then take damage equal to this card's attack, which is 2,500. So if this card was printed, I don't know if this card would really get that much use. I think there's better cards to stop the battle phase and negate damage. Also, it only works if a monster is attacking directly with less than 2,500 attack, so I don't think this card really would see any sort of play if it was printed, but it does have a lot of attack and a pretty unique effect. We have 3 monsters tied for third, the first being Mad Profiler with 2,600 attack points. This card was used by Commander Kodo against Aki in episode 22. This card really coolly represents its anime user, Commander Kodo, who is a person obsessed with profiling people. The card cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned by tributing 3 monsters. You can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard and select 1 card on the field of the same type, spell, trap, or monster, and remove it from play. So Mad Profiler, a pretty interesting card here. Again, I don't think it would really get all that much use. It can't be special summoned unless you're tributing 3 monsters. So to do that, it's a high cost. It's got to have a really good effect. I'm not sure if that effect is justifiable for its summoning conditions, but it is one of the monsters tied for third on this list. Another monster tied for third is Hollow Ghost with 2,600 attack points. Hollow Ghost also cannot be normal or set summoned. It has to be special summoned, only with the effect of Hollow Spirit. Now, Hollow Spirit is a monster who can special summon a Hollow Ghost from hand, deck, or grave once it is sent to the graveyard, as long as it is destroyed by battle. So that's how you get Hollow Ghost onto the field, and then its real effect is that each time a card is sent to the grave, inflict 600 damage to your opponent. If Hollow Spirit is not in your grave, this card's attack becomes 0. Now, the Hollow archetype is one of those few archetypes from 5Ds that was never printed. It was used by Haley when they dueled Leo in episode 70. Power Tool Dragon eventually beats over this card to end the duel and give Leo the win. Another card tied for third is Giant Ushi Oni with 2,600 attack points. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. It can only be special summoned by tributing 1 Ushi Oni. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it can attack once again in a row. This effect can only be used once per turn. So this card is a counterpart of Ushi Oni, a monster that it needs in order to actually be summoned. The card is used a few times early on in 5Ds. Its original user is Tanner. This card is also the card that Yusei famously shows the bartender in episode 11 right before he is served that piping cold glass of milk. Coming in second, Masked Knight level 7 with 2,900 attack points. I did tell you a few minutes ago we were going to get back to the Masked Knights, and this card can only be special summoned by the effect of Masked Knight level 5. Once per turn, you can inflict 1,500 damage to your opponent. So you go through all of these troubles to get to the final Masked Knight, the final level monster, and for its effect to only be burn damage, no protection, no removal. Maybe it's a little underwhelming. But if your opponent has 1,500 or less, it is a way maybe to end the game. Now, this is used in episode 16, and believe it or not, this is the only level archetype that has never been printed yet in the TCG or OCG. The only anime-exclusive level archetype. For that reason alone, I do hope Masked Knights get printed one day, but until they do, they remain one of the highest attack point value 5Ds anime-exclusive monsters. And number 1, Abyss Ruler Mictlanteotl with 3,800 attack points. Now, if you don't remember this monster, maybe you only watched the dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. This is the Ace of Red Familiar in episode 113 when he duels Jack Atlas. Now, Jack eventually attacks over this and wins the duel after he performs his first double tuning to summon Red Nova Dragon. This monster is absolutely sick, and it really is one that I hope we see printed at some point, because it would be such a cool tribute to 5Ds, and I feel like if they were ever going to do a Jack Atlas themed pack, it would be really cool to see this card part of that Jack-themed pack. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. It can only be special summoned by removing from play 3 Abyss monsters from your graveyard. Once per turn, you can destroy 1 face-up card your opponent controls and inflict 600 damage to your opponent. So a pretty decent effect. You can pop a card, inflict some damage, and you get a 3,800 attack point beater on your field that's going to be very difficult to beat over for most decks. So a really awesome card, and if you've seen the scene in 5Ds where Jack Atlas beats this card and performs the double tuning, it is absolutely incredible. And it's a card that I really do hope we see printed at one point, because again, I think it's such a good legacy card when it comes to 5Ds and the 5Ds lore. And that about wraps it up. Ladies and gentlemen, that completes our 15 highest attack, strongest anime monsters that have never been printed in the TCG or OCG videos probably forever. I mean, maybe we'll do this for Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, but I don't have any plans to do it for the Rush Duel shows right now. We'll let that game kind of get its footing, and then maybe 5-10 years from now we'll see where we're at. But let me know of all these cards which ones you think could actually be pretty viable, and let me know which ones you think are the coolest and that you'd like to see printed in the official game down below in the comments. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the other videos I've done on this topic, although some of them are outdated now, but hopefully it's still an enjoyable watch. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the comments below. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Panther J, Blue Maiden 28, and Jarrett Buller, and to my Diamond tier patrons, Jesse Wood and Latrell Smith, and to my Egyptian God tier patrons, Ccapacappuuu and Syn Cloud. To everyone who supports me on Patreon, and to everyone who is a YouTube channel member, thank you so much. The extra support means the world to me, and it allows me to make videos on a semi-daily basis, and I am forever indebted to you guys. Seriously, thank you so much. And definitely check out my channel membership feature and my Patreon for some extra channel perks. And thank you guys all so much for watching. Please leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Be sure to check out my channel for some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime content. And I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.